My name is Charlene Burchett. I'm an Onondaga Indian and I belong to the Snipe clan. Polly Cooper was instrumental in the War of 1777 to 1778. During the war, she accompanied Chief Shenandoah, and they had delivered 600 bushel of corn to Valley Forge. George Washington's troops were starving to death. When they got there and they put the corn on the ground, the men just started eating it, and she knew that if they ate it raw, that they would die. So she decided to stay and to fix the corn so that the men wouldn't die. George Washington wanted to pay her, and she refused payment. She said no, she wouldn't take payment for that. It was during a trip. I'm not sure how she got to Philadelphia or what was going on, but she was walking down the street with Martha Washington and admired the shawl and bonnet. And Martha went back and talked to her husband, George Washington, and it was through an act of Congress that they were able to buy the shawl and the bonnet and give to Polly Cooper for her services to the Army. It's only been in the last 20 to 30 years that there's been any mention of Polly Cooper and her shawl. It's not written in the history books. There's nothing in Congress in that, you can go on the internet and you'll find no information about how they appropriated this money for the shawl. It's not talked about in history. It's just something that Native Americans have kept alive and kept the interest. It was handed down. My grandfather was Shenandoah, Chapman Shenandoah. He was probably the 4th or 5th generation, and I would be the 7th generation. So it's just been handed down. The one thing was my grandfather was Oneida, and now it's in an Onondaga home. Karen Lynn Hill. She would then, once I pass, she would then take care of it and make sure that nothing happened to it. We don't own it. We just are caretakers of it. We make sure that nothing happens to it. The Oneidas were instrumental in when the Smithsonian has their Native American building, and they gave this statue, and it's of George Washington, Shenandoah, and Polly Cooper.
It's kept within the reservation?
It's in the family. Yeah. They have, I'm trying to think what the year was, they did examine the shawl, but because it's priceless, they just took pictures of it. But they wouldn't, you can't even tell what the fringes, what kind of material the fringe is. They just don't know what it was made out of. And over the years, we've lost the bonnet. Maybe Polly wore it until it just couldn't be handed down. And my mother used to take it around, and this was the last, I'm not even sure what the year was, that she used to take it to Oneida. She would let the Oneidas borrow it. She would take it to the schools. The last school I believe she took it was to Manlius Preble Hill. And she would talk about it. the Smithsonian wanted to, at first they wanted to know, and I believe the Oneidas also wanted to know what it was made out of. But once they found out that to test it, they would ruin it, they gave up on it. Well, the shawl is very important. It showed that when I was growing up, Indians were portrayed on TV as savages and running around and shooting at stagecoaches and everything else. This is something that more people should know. More people should know about the contributions that Native Americans have made. Whether it will happen, I don't know, but it should be.
My name is Karen Lynn Hill. I am Onondagas Night. I believe I heard the name Polly Cooper while I was growing up, intermittently. Older teenager, I heard about it, and as I got older, the more it was mentioned, the more I found out, and the more I learned about Polly Cooper and the shawl and the significance of the shawl. I guess at the time when you see something that you don't know the importance of it, you don't take as much notice to it as I should have been a younger person, and I just didn't take that much notice. But I of course I do now that I'm an older adult. I've seen it, and of course there's a lot of pride knowing that someday this will be passed on to myself. It's just a piece of history that not everybody gets to, I don't know, say that they hold a significant piece of history in their family. I'm for it being on display, but I would rather the family would keep ownership of the shawl, and that would be only to preserve the shawl itself. And I guess my only thoughts are, I always remember Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, and it being put in a box and being put in a warehouse, and 2 miles, down to the right and 3 miles to the left, and it being put in there and forgotten forever. So at least with it being in this family, there's always the possibility of it being brought out and shown and being viewed. So I believe that it was just, it's known that it's been in this family and will continue to be in this family. And it's just the people who know of the shawl know who has it and where it will continue to be. I believe she was, from what I've learned about her, she was a brave woman who shared her knowledge and shared her she had the willingness to teach strangers how to survive. She did it to save these people, not for any type of recognition or pay or anything. And it was almost, from what I understand, it was difficult to even have her accept the shawl and sort of what we would call a payment for her services. So I believe she was a brave, courageous woman.